Thank you for the applause, and we haven't even started. How brilliant. Welcome to everybody, both here and at home, and we apologise for our late start. Technology, God loves it. So we're about an hour late, but hey, everybody here is fed and watered, so what more can we say? I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're working from tonight, the Wurundjeri and the Boon Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to elders past, present, and to all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people from across all nations of the land. And from here in Melbourne, I wish you all a happy NAIDOC week. My name's Denise Erickson. I'm co-founder of Media Mentors, and our job is to build careers. So what better place to be than here tonight, talking about writing with these extraordinary people who have managed, God knows how, to make a career out of writing. So, of course, I'm going to welcome them. Peter Matisi on one end, and I'm assuming you've all read their amazing bio, so I'm not going to trudge through all that. Peter Matisi there, Kitty Flanagan, and David Hannam. So, welcome, and thank you for waiting as well.
Wine made it easier.
Well, look, I'm going to actually start this discussion. It's a question I want to ask you all. Why the hell do you do it?
I can't do anything else.
I'm a bit the same, actually.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a origin story of when I did this or saw that. That was the moment I knew I wanted to be a writer. I never had that moment. The moment I sort of wanted to become a writer was when I got a job as a writer, and then it was like, I can do this, and this might be a career, and that's how it happened. But I've never got that. I desperately want to do it. It's my burning desire. I never had that as a kid. I'm sorry, I feel I should have. I feel like everyone else has one, I never did.
I think if you can do something else, you will, because it is quite difficult, and I feel it chooses you in a way, and it's about, especially at the beginning, about how resilient you are and how pragmatic you are.
Kitty?
Well, there's a certain personality type, I think, and Peter summed it up actually when we were sent outside to mingle first. And you would have noticed the three of us standing in a corner mingling. And yeah, Peter did point out, oh God. And I said, you don't get three writers on a panel if you want people to mingle. You get the actors and the producers to come along. But writers are the worst at mingling. I don't speak for you, David. Maybe you're good at it. But yeah, it's not my forte. We're okay once we've been on and we've kind of presented ourselves and shown who we are, and so there might be questions or something. But yeah, just sending us out and just go and speak to those people. It's like, yeah, that's not going to fucking happen.
Yeah, actually,
nothing against you, but it's very hard. I think, from my perspective anyway, it's very hard for me to walk. And I know it sounds stupid, especially being a stand-up comedian. It's very hard for me to just walk into a room with strangers. If I'm on stage separated from you and there's a light on me and nothing on you, I can do it. But just in a room where I have to walk up to people and go, oh, hi, how's it going?
I love
so
that.
So what do you do for a job? I can't do
I
it.
did feel your pain. Each of you went at me when I said, let's go out there.
Oh, we didn't run out there. You had to come in twice and drag us out.
It's a weird job because it's a really strange mix of your introverted part of your personality, where you're at home creating a world and playing with things that don't really exist, all based on experience in some way. And then this weird extroverted part where you have to pitch and you have to sell ideas and sell yourself constantly. So it is a very strange, it's interesting you as a performer with it as well. I think you have to be two things at once in a way to make it work.
Especially in TV as well, where it's so collaborative. There's maybe two TV writers in the world who get to do whatever they want and have it on the screen.
And they're here tonight.
But it's like you have to put your heart and soul and everything that is you into your work, because that's what makes you good, right? The thing that you bring to it. Well, this is all me, I'm spilling my heart out here. And then you have to go to a meeting and someone has to say that doesn't work, and you have to instantly be able to go, okay, how can we make it better? And that's a really difficult thing, and I see a lot of younger writers struggle with that, which is, I've poured my heart out, don't tell me anything bad about it, I'm going to fight you on that.
Yeah,
that's really how you've got to switch that
people
off.
do tend to be defensive
first
up, and you've got to learn not to be so defensive, and it's taken me a very, very long time.
But also not to be a pushover, not to say, okay, what do you want me to be?
Yeah,
I'll be
it's
that.
a really fine line.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard when the opportunities are so few to find your voice when the opportunity arrives, and I think that's what is balancing taking on notes and other people's feedback, because we write to be read, and it's amazing how hard it is as a writer sometimes. I'm sure you've all experienced it, to show the work that you've done, which doesn't make any sense really, but it's because it's so personal. And so when you're in that feedback process, which is absolutely vital, nobody writes the perfect first draft ever. I spent about 10 years believing it to be true, and it's just not. And so that feedback and other people's thoughts and how they're responding to the material is really important. And so that's, again, the introvert-extrovert thing for me, which is, when do I go, oh, okay, I'm being attacked here, and when is it, this is good, and how do I have a conversation with that feedback? How do I find the extroverted part of myself to kind of go, oh, okay, actually, yes to this, no to that?
Yeah, and one of the questions I'm going to ask later is sort of how you feel when the actors start reading it and things, and which is quite a good segue really into you, Miss FISK. I do want to start with you, Kitty, because I bloody love FISK, and it's such a great series.
That's very kind, thank you.
And I adore it, and I really want to talk to you about how you got Helen up and, you know, where she came from. But first, I want to play this clip, which I know you're going to talk to as well. So I can't believe anybody in this room missed FISK, but if you did, it's bloody on ABC iView, and pick it up right now. That's an order. But in the meantime, let's have a look at Ping Pong, please.
Hey, Ray.
Always be ready.
Jesus.
Don't! Okay, listen, this case is going to court and I could do it. I just think you should do it.
Yeah, I've told you I'm not going to court. It's a massive time suck.
Exactly, that's why I hate going to court too. Such a time suck.
Whose time do you think's more important?
I want to say...
Mine? Is there a problem? Because you are starting to shit me.
There's no problem, Ray. I'm going to go to court like I've done countless times before. Don't even worry about it. Oh, funny every time. Never gets old.
I know. It's really good, isn't it?
I love it. Well done. You told me when we were chatting that, you know, you've been trying to get Helen up and FISK up as a series for a number of years, and she aged progressively.
Yeah.
Tell us the story of how you got it up.
Well, it wasn't necessarily that
FISK.
that FISK, but certainly there was a character called Helen who started out in my scripts as, because, you know, as you would all know when you write a script, the first thing you do is write Helen in capital letters and then put her age next to it in brackets. And it used to be Helen, 33, Helen, 35, Helen, late 30s, Helen, early 40s, Helen, Jesus Christ, 47, can I get away with that? So Helen at 47 finally got up, which is still a bit of a stretch given that I'm not 47. But I refuse to put it up anymore. So.
And so where did Helen come from? You said that she's been with you for a long time.
Well, look, I'm not a, brilliant actor. I think she's not far from myself. So I'm pretty much just playing, if I was a lawyer, that would be me. I think when you're a comedian and you're doing acting and you're not a proper trained actor, I think it's best to write, something that you're able to perform and that's close to what you do. And that was why I wrote a lot of roles for friends of mine who are also comedians, because I knew how they would talk, I knew how they would say stuff. And the thing with me is I can do, I started out in sketch comedy, that was my first television, and it's weird, I can do real extremes that are nothing like me, or I can do, me, but I'm not great at the in-between stuff. I would never do, I mean, never say never, but I can't imagine ever doing a serious role. I don't want to necessarily do a serious role. I always want to just be funny. So yeah, but also the idea of me trying to emote and
Isn't that the way comedians get awards? You do serious roles.
Yeah.
I was like, woo, I thought she was a comedian, but wow, she can really bring the drama.
Yeah, well, that'll never happen. I just think it's I think and it's not a bad thing because it's actually a hard thing, I think, to be funny. It's actually not, but not a lot of actors do it well.
Yeah.
And it is actually very easy. All they have to do is not try and be funny. They just have to read what's on the page. Like, it's usually always there in the writing. But yeah, the last thing you want to do is try and act funny. Just trust that the writing is funny and read the words.
Where did the ping pong thing come from? I mean, when you're sitting down writing the series, did you think, I'm going to do ping pong so that we can chuck bats at each other?
No, the storyline was that Peggy was a character who'd come back to the office. She used to clerk there, but she'd started her own kind of, you know, those people that go around to offices and help, motivational kind of, well, not motivational speakers, but they help the office to bond. And so she'd started her own thing, and they always have merchandise. So that was just, you know, one of the merchandise things was her always be ready bats, where she'd come in and always be ready people. And she'd given one to everyone in the office. And I just, that scene for me is one of my favourites, because for all I sit around pretending that I want to write clever things and clever rejoinders, I just am such a sucker for physical comedy. I love it so much, and I always want it to be real. So I had to give the bat to my director, my co-director, Tom Peterson, because I didn't trust Marty Sheargold to throw it. So my co-director was the one who was trusted with the bat, and we actually did it for a wheel where he just chucked it time and time again. And I kept going, closer, closer, get it closer. That's too far away. It needs to be closer. It needs to be closer.
Did it hurt?
Well, it didn't hit me. He was very good. He hit right here. He hit very close. Yeah.
He was liking you that day.
Yeah, I know. We had a really good relationship. So
when you sat down to write that series, what's your process when you write? I don't understand how you write a series like that.
Well, I'm far more interested in hearing how these guys do a process.
Yeah, but we're coming.
No, but I'm just saying, because I don't have one, and I would love to have one. Okay. I write with my sister, and we basically sit at the kitchen table and say, what about this? What about this? And we tried going into rooms with people, and we put stuff on a whiteboard, and you know, it was all arced out for, it's going to be this, and it's going to be this, and then this will happen, and then the dad will do this, and then story arc over 6 episodes. And then we sat down to write the first episode, and we went, right, well, we've just done the board in 10 minutes. What are we going to do for the other 5 episodes in 20 minutes? Like, it didn't work for us. Like, for us, we had to follow what was funny and get the story out of that. And it took us a long time to convince the producer that these table sessions just aren't working for us.
When
Go for it. No.
When you say we sit around saying what about this, what about this?
Yeah.
Are the thises that you're saying, are they jokes, or are they story ideas, or are they journeys, or what are they?
Mostly it's kind of like that. It comes down to, like, you know, we've kind of got a scene that's working, and then it's like, and then you get a bit stuck, and it's okay, what about this? Okay. And you know, she says blah blah blah, she says this, you know. So yeah, it's kind of lines and stuff. But yeah, we would always have a vague idea of where we were going, but invariably it came out of what was funniest. Like, this is funny, let's follow that, which is not great for if you've got a whole bunch of writers who need to write on one show. Like, you can't do it that way. It's just not possible.
What we do in drama is about that arc, and I think that's the difference with comedy. And I can't do it, which is about moments versus these longer stories.
Yeah.
And
I think the beauty is when you can get both together. Like, the real gems are when people can do an overarching thing over the whole 6 episodes and get the moments. But yeah, we just found we had to just follow what was making us laugh, and that then became the story rather than.
Well, that's a perfect segue into Peter and Miss Fisher, which is exactly the sort of thing that you're talking about, Kitty. Miss Fisher Modern, showing on Acorn and on Channel 7
Eventually. I don't know when they've got it.
Yeah.
There's a deal, Acorn have it for a while, and then 7 can show it, but I don't think 7 have a great passion for it. Okay. Well, I suppose they do, yeah.
Well, I watched the first few episodes last night on Acorn. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I love Miss Fisher. So I'm going to play a little clip from Miss Fisher, Modern, and then we'll talk about how that sort of series comes together.
Miss Peregrine Fisher, private detective.
Little fish. Now, why aren't I surprised to see you?
I had an appointment with one of the murder victims.
Let the men get on with things.
You take me way out. You take me way
Drop the gun.
You take me way out. Higher than the sky. Higher than the sky.
cute. Someone who likes to get to the bottom of things.
Oh, it's pretty like Queen's Gambit.
Yeah.
It's very pretty. It's extremely pretty.
It's very pretty and very 60s. I forgot how bloody sexist it all was. And those clothes are just gorgeous.
The clothes are amazing. Our costume designer is a bit of a
but one of the
genius.
things you did tell me is that you hadn't written a lot of crime procedure. In fact, I don't think you'd done any.
No.
Like, how did you sort of go, I'll go from writing,
Well, they asked me to do it.
Right.
And something that I have learned to do really well in my career is to I'm quite an enthusiastic person in general. And so when it's like murder mystery, and I'd never read a murder mystery really, or watched a murder mystery with any great interest. And once I'm working on a murder mystery, it's like, right, I'm going to become a murder mystery fan now. And so can approach reading lots of Agatha Christie and watching a lot of murder mystery with a lot of enthusiasm. And so, which is just my personality, which helps. And it's a really great genre, someone who didn't pay any attention to it for 40 years of my life. Just because you don't get many opportunities where your audience is so engaged in the show.
Yeah.
They're so, part of murder mystery, and for a lot of people, the biggest part about it is solving the murder. And the whole deal of murder mystery is you play fair with the audience, that your detective doesn't have any clues that your audience doesn't have. Yeah, it's really important. And you read on the back of Agatha Christie's, they'll be saying, she's very fair, she's the fairest of all of them, because it's all there.
I don't think Agatha Christie is fair.
We're going to fight about this later.
I think Agatha Christie buries things.
She definitely buries things. She does bury them, and we try and bury them as well. But yeah, so it was great to have an audience that is so engaged in that show.
Yeah. I should say that people in the room, if you want to text questions, that's the numbers on the side there. We're happy to take questions by text. And if you're watching at home, feel free to use a little chat thing, and they'll come to me via this and we'll pop them on in. But it's a very sort of it's more of a forensic approach to it, in the sense that it's a machine.
Yeah.
So talk us through how that plays
So it's
out.
sort of when Kitty's talking about, we just sit around and talk about it. Ours is the absolute opposite of that. Like, it has to be extremely rigidly plotted, because it's all about, here's you got your 4 suspects or your 5 suspects. We're going to meet them all before, there's no commercial breaks, it's on Acorn, but before the first commercial break, we're going to get to know everyone. And then it's about taking your audience with your detective on a path through those suspects, so that any moment, generally we think of who's in the frame now, which are the suspects we're looking at any moment, who we're looking at, why we're looking at them. And Fiona Eager, who is one of the execs of the show, is the biggest on this, and it's right. Do we believe that they would kill for that reason? So it's very tempting to, when you're plotting this type of show, to say, oh, he never liked her. She put her rubbish in his bin every night outside their house. And you go, that pisses me off as well. But in reality, I know it's a heightened world, but would you murder someone for that?
Yes.
Kitty would. She's a
I
maniac.
probably would too.
That's fine. But and so it's a very tightly structured thing of taking you all the way through, and then to the person at the end who revealed in that denouement scene where it's like, you did it, this is why. And the dream in that moment is that your audience says, oh, should have got that. Oh, that was obvious. Now I think of it. Yeah, it was all there. That's the dream.
Yeah.
You go too far past that, and they're like, well, that's obvious. I picked that 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And if you go too far the other way, it's like, oh, no one could have got that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so treading that balance is extremely. It's the most difficult thing I've ever plotted in my life, because when you plot a drama, and comedy is different, maybe not, but when you plot a drama, you sort of get to a point 2/3 through, and everyone around the table's like, and then we're done. Yeah. And everyone sort of knows what the story's rolling, you've set things up, and then away you go. Yeah. You never get that with a murder mystery. You've just got to plot it to the very last minute, and it's just extremely exhausting.
Because you do
really
get angry
difficult.
as an audience, like when
As
you
well
kind
you
of go,
should.
oh,
Well,
that was
that's
so red herring. Oh,
Yeah.
they played so like you're. But yeah, it's funny how it does make you angry as an audience.
And it's good that that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, there's not many shows where your audience gets to the end of it, and it's an episodic show. Each episode sort of stands on its own. So there's not a huge investment in the overarching story, with Breaking Bad or whatever. But where you get your audience at the end going, I feel betrayed. They sold me out. I've wasted my 40 minutes watching that because their mystery wasn't good enough. So it's an amazing thing to have. it's also terrifying because you can't slack off.
The audience is so sophisticated around this. I'm doing a mystery as well, and they know, especially with someone like Acorn, where it's just all there too. Like so you're up against all of these people who are much better at it.
Yeah, your audience is so smart now.
Yeah, and so I think that makes twists really hard and resolutions really difficult.
And as you say, a sophisticated audience who are going, that's just, bottom.
Yeah, and with Fiona and Deb, who created the show, Fiona Eager and Deb Cox, when they're in the room, there's like you've got to play 3D chess with your audience. So I'd be coming at it at this very pure way, which is like, and then he says X, and they'll be like, no. If someone says X, the audience is going to be thinking they mean Y. I'm like, but that doesn't make sense. They're like, in the context of someone who watches murder mysteries every day, that makes sense. So not only are you trying to plot it as a good mystery, you've also got in your mind, what is the sophisticated murder mystery viewer thinking at this point, and how can we subvert that? But also not make it so complicated that someone who doesn't watch murder mysteries all the time will still enjoy it. It sucks. It's really difficult. But it's really hard. It's really hard.
But at the same time, establishing characters that are really emotionally engaging, they imprint very fast for the audience because you don't have long to establish them, that are telling you they're murderer without telling you they're the murderer, and who are different from every other show that's on the platform that you're on.
Like 4 or 5 every episode.
You should do something else.
I know.
It's too hard. It's too hard.
This sucks. And also, when you get into the editing process, once you get further along the script process, once your plot's in there, you can't just take a scene out. We're 5 minutes long. I'll just take that. In a drama, you go, we don't really need that scene. Yeah. In that one, you go, hang on, that's got that clue. We've got to put that clue somewhere else. If we don't have that clue there, then we're not going to be looking at that person. Then what's the point of that character? It's just, it's very hard.
Yeah.
And Deb and Fee have been doing it for, 3 series of Fisher and then 2 series of this, and they're still banging their heads. They're way ahead of me, but they're still banging their heads against the wall.
Well, full power to them. Something a bit different now is Carlotta, and the reason I was keen to talk about Carlotta and David is that writing about someone who's alive and whose true story it is, before we play the clip, just briefly tell us the story of Carlotta and what led you to it.
It was kind of a happy coincidence, I think, which explains most of my career. I was working in a company and we started looking at ideas. It was during the period where biopics and bio miniseries were huge in Australia. And I'm kind of looking around, well, who was left, actually? And
Gina Reinhardt.
Yeah, and I have, I've been interested in, LGBTQ plus stories. And in talking about, figures that had made an impression, Carlotta came up. Carlotta sort of misnamed, really, because it's actually about Carol Spencer, and who is Carlotta, or invented Carlotta. And I remember seeing her in the 90s on a street in Sydney. Well, I didn't realise it was her. I was walking up the street, and this amazingly glamorous woman got out of a red convertible, and as she on Oxford Street in Paddington, and when she stepped onto the footpath, all these people came from everywhere, and there were 20-year-olds and 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds, and I'm like, who is that? And when I got up close, I realised it was Carol. And it always stayed with me. And I kind of thought, isn't it interesting that one figure is dynamic for all of those different kind of people? And that's really fascinating about that iconic character that she created. And I just thought, the Balmain boy who becomes the knockout beauty and retires to the suburbs to be a suburban wife was just a pretty unbeatable story.
Irresistible. Let's have a look at that clip, please.
Oh, no, come on.
Let me go,
Please,
Richard.
let me explain. Mum.
Did you dare call me that? You're not my son. Not like this. You need help.
I didn't come here to fight.
Didn't you?
No, I came here to show you who I really am. Mum, this is who I've always been on the inside. I was never like the other boys.
This is not my fault.
I'm not blaming you.
We play the hand we're dealt, Richard.
Yes, that's right. And Richard wasn't me. This is me. This is right. My name is Carol.
Why do you do this?
Because I know what's going to happen when you find out.
Have you been with someone else?
I'm the lead dancer in a show called Lay Girls.
No, that's not possible.
I'm Carlotta.
You're a woman, I know you are.
Yeah, I am. Now I am. I'm sorry.
Oh. Oh. I'm in love with you.
This is my life. Today, tomorrow, love will come and find me. But that's the way that I was born to be. This is me. This is me. This is my life. And I don't give a damn for lost emotion. I've such a lot of love I've got to give. Let me live. Let me live. This is my life. This is my life. This is my
David, yeah, I loved it. I mean, I loved it. It was a telemovie on the ABC. And
Sorry.
how did you persuade her? I mean, how did it get? Did you get her permission?
It's interesting. We started working on this in 2009, which is like a millennia ago in terms of representation on television, and so this was a difficult sell in a lot of ways. Even though it's a story about the suburbs in a way, and it's very universal. It's about somebody who wants to be loved for who they are, which I always felt was, you know, something that made it really accessible, which was kind of really important. This was the idea for this was for it to go out at 8:30 on a Sunday on the ABC, and so you know there were a couple of potential iterations of it, but very early on, Jessica Murray, the amazing Jessica Murray, who just worked like a Trojan in this show. She was just incredible in every scene, and she's either singing or dancing or emoting or she was just incredible. But having her attached to the project at that very early stage, we didn't even have a script, just made it happen, and I'm forever grateful to her. I think if we were making it now, that would be a different proposition.
But at what point did you approach Carol?
Very early, and because it obviously making a biopic about somebody who's alive, it's great to have them on your side, obviously.
Almost essential.
Well, it's such a legal quagmire, and around this time too, the ITA series had run into some legal troubles as well. So we were, and the broadcaster's hyper aware of it too, but also, because it's Carol's story, not really Carlotta's story, everybody knows, well, lots of people know the Carlotta story, the showgirl and Australia's first very public transsexual. So it was about getting that Carol story for me. It was actually the really important, interesting thing to me, because great stories are about transitions of some sort. This was literally the transition. But so we met with her very, very early. She had a lot of reservations, I think, about sharing the really intensely personal parts of her story that aren't in the books about her. And so we spent a lot of time drinking wine at lunch and getting to know each other and trusting each other, I think. And to the point where when you had to ask the hard questions of her about why she made choices that she did or how she felt in some moments, that was actually really difficult for her, but really important. The other really handy part is she has a really terrible memory. So in terms of timeline, you weren't really locked into
Well, that's quite good for a writer.
Can I ask how you did an ending though? Because I often find one of the problems with memoirs, even when you just read them, if they've been written and the person is still alive, obviously if it's their memoir, it's like, and it kind of just Like when people structure a book or a movie or whatever, you kind of go, and this, and this, and this, and da-da-da, and then the end, hooray! Whereas when someone's still alive, it's like, and then they're having a coffee now.
Well, Carlotta
how did you decide what to put as the end?
Carlotta very conveniently just has a 3-act structure in her life. There was her becoming Carlotta and transitioning to a woman, figuring out what that meant in terms of actually being a woman who wasn't famous. I think, so she got married and she lived in the suburbs and made curtains and then realised that she probably wasn't going to be fully accepted, spoilers now, in that life. And so then, and she missed her old life. And so then, I won't tell you the rest of the story, but she has a choice to make. And so I think
you were able to pick an end point that was...
Yeah, in a way the movie is a love story between Carol and Carlotta. And they break up and then they get back together. And that's, I think, probably how it gave it that shape.
Yeah. And Jessica Murray was somebody that Carol was very happy with, wasn't she?
Yeah.
It was a bit controversial at the time, to say the least.
I think if you're a 60-something woman and Jessica Murray has been signed to play you, like there's... I'd be happy if that happened.
I'd be bloody delighted.
If that happened for me, Jessica can play me anytime.
People ask me who would play me, and I say Leo Sayer. In my biopic, I want Leo up front.
Did she sing it?
Yeah.
She's got a good voice.
She's amazing. She's such an incredible all-rounder and a really decent human too.
So what's your advice to people who are thinking, I've got a character I want to write, a real-life, living type person that I want to write about?
I think wait till they're dead. I think we got really lucky because Carol was, a really good sport. And that makes it kind of really easier. I also think there's a really amazing responsibility when it's a real person too. And
I would say just fictionalise it. Like if you've got someone you want to write about and they really inspire you, just fictionalise it.
Yeah.
Like change a bit here, change a bit there. No one's ever going to know. You'll be right.
I actually think the best thing when you're getting started is to write something intensely personal anyway. I would not recommend that you write about somebody else in the first instance, because I think in this very crowded market, the thing that stands out when I read people's work is just something that's unique, and nobody has a take on the world that's the same as yours. Yeah. So I know that sounds a bit kind of amorphous.
Are you saying write what you know?
Write what you know?
Interesting take.
He's already stolen my thunder. Yeah, I think that is the way too, because then it'll have integrity and authenticity, and it'll also be really personal to you. And when you were talking about having to pitch your work, if it's something that's a really personal story for you, then you will be able to talk about that with passion, which is actually how you sell a project. So, because you're selling yourself. And Pete was talking about it before. I mean, both of us have written a lot of relationship drama, and you're just mining your life. And it's amazing at a plotting table when the circle of trust is established and people feel they can say whatever, which is really important. Everybody, all of you have an amazing story. I guarantee you, there's something in your family or in your relationship or in your experience of the world that is extraordinary and really affecting and probably funny and probably sad. And that's what a good story for the screen is.
That is the best bit about writers' rooms. And so always be careful. Like if you're invited into a writer's room and you've got something really good, and you think, oh no, I want to keep that for myself. Don't offer it up, because they just go, oh, good one, and that's your whole thing gone. You go, oh, I could have made a series out of that. Too late. You gave it to the room.
We've spunked it away on like 2 scenes.
Yeah,
to fill a gap somewhere.
I love that about a writer's room though, sitting there listening to everybody. Like if you've got good people and everyone trusts one another, and also just people telling. That's the best bit, because then it doesn't feel like work either. People just sit there
and the thing I always love about that is when someone's telling something personal, is how intensely everyone in that room listens, which you don't get in the world very often, where everyone sort of respects each other enough, but also respects that they're sharing something about themselves, and they will listen completely intensely and generally without any sort of judgment at all.
No, because we're all going scenes and beats. How many scenes?
Yeah, I know.
Where's the turning point?
I find that really moving.
How's this going to end? Yeah. Not to be mercenary about it. I think if you can get into a writer's room, it's actually, that is the, I might be jumping ahead, to the ice-breaking point in your career. Because if you can get into one of those rooms and have a good idea at the right moment, that is where everybody will sit up and kind of go, oh, okay. what this person's interesting, and let's foster this. Let's see what they're writing. Who are they creatively?
I'm going to move it on to writing other things, Kitty, and the rules book, because again, this is a very different sort of piece of work for you. Let's play the clip about how the rules came about, because again, I bloody love this. It makes me laugh.
488 Rules for Life is my way of trying to make the world a more pleasant place to live. For example, rule number 1, no chewing with your mouth open. I don't want to hear what you're eating, and I don't want to see that car crash either. As we travel through life, we discover that many, many people are really annoying. And that's why we need rules. Rule 62, always travel single file on the escalator. Rule 18, 2 sniffs only, then get a tissue and deal with that snot.
Oh my God, that reminds me of my dog.
Rule 29, no FaceTiming in a public space. Rule 14, leave nothing behind. Always turn and do a final check before exiting the toilet. One thing, enforcing them is another, which is why I'm currently in talks with the Federal Police about creating a special 488 Rules task force. So if you are caught breaking the rules, there will be consequences. Excuse me. It's 2 demerit points. Can I? Rule 43. Lift your f***ing chair! Just about making it okay.
Again, we see the theme of my comedy, which is throwing things at people. I'm very basic.
This sort of came out of something that you were doing on the weekly, which was a bit of a piss take on that other 12 rules book.
Yes, that was just a segment I did on the weekly. One of the hardest things, I think, for any writer is the idea. And when you do a show like the weekly, which I did for 4 years, I think, and I did the project before that for 5 years. And every week, having to come up with an idea is just torture. And that's why I loved writing FISK, because it was like, it's one idea and I get to do it for 6 times 30 minutes instead of every week. I was like, oh, I just did that. Now I've got to have another idea. Now I've got to have another idea. And so when I heard about 12 Rules for Life, I asked the producers if they could get me a copy of the book. I said, great, I'm just going to do my own version. I was basically just looking for a cheap way to do a segment. And so I said, I'm going to do my own version because 12 Rules for Life, come on, Jordan, I've got 12 rules just for the bathroom. I can beat that. And so I just invented this pretend book called 488 Rules for Life. And we played that on the weekly. And then, true story, people started going into bookshops and asking for the book 488 Rules for Life, and the booksellers kept saying, no, you mean 12 Rules for Life, and people were saying, no, there's a new one now, and it's by that comedian. And eventually a very savvy bookseller in Adelaide, Dimmock's in Adelaide, rang my publisher, because I'd had a book out before, and said, do you think you could ask her if she would actually write this book, because we think there's a market for it, because people are asking for it. So it's possibly the best ever way to write a book is to have the audience want it first. The idea was an accident, and the only problem with it was I had titled it 488 Rules for Life. And when I sat down and I went, yeah, I can do that. And I thought, God, we had hundreds of rules in that segment. And I counted them up and I went, actually, we had 12. But yeah, I sort of had, I knew how I would get out of it if I went too many and managed to get more than 488. And I also knew how I would get out of it if I had less than 488. So I said, just go ahead and call it 488 Rules for Life. I just like the number. It's just a funny number. But I certainly was just writing with no idea whether I would hit 99 or 100. I got really close. I think I got to 445. No, 445.
445.
Unless you get the Japanese version, because they've made it in Japan. They've published in Japan where it is called 308 Rules I Made Myself. So they felt a lot of my rules were dispensable. At least a quarter of the book got cut out.
That's a hard edit right there.
So how did you approach writing that? Great difficulty?
It's very different. I mean, obviously, it's very different to writing television. And I think both my sister and I discovered that when we got together to write FISK is how much we enjoyed the collaborative process of television. And I also enjoyed that too, just on the weekly. You know, I worked with another writer on my segments, and I also worked with my director, Tom Peterson. He co-directed FISK with me, but we got to know each other on the weekly. We worked together for 4 seasons where he produced and directed all my segments, and we were just like a little unit, and just that collaborative process is so fun. And compared to writing a book, and I don't know if any of you are book writers or authors, I believe is the correct word. I like to say book writer.
Being a wordsmith.
Yeah. being a book writer. But if you know any, or you are one, they're even worse, I reckon, than television writers for people that stand in the corner, because they are just, you have to isolate yourself to write a book. There's just no other way to do it. You have to lock yourself in a room. I'm writing a book at the moment, and the only way you can do it is just turn your phone off, don't talk to anyone, and just write at least until lunchtime. And that's it. And then you can go out. Oh, don't laugh like that's heaps.
Quite a long time.
It's interesting.
That is a long time.
A lot of TV writers who've been in it a while get to probably 15, 20 years in, and they start writing books just as a side project. And they all say the same things, like, it's so nice to just do whatever I want.
Yeah, but
no
it's
one's
so
saying
lonely.
we can't do this. It's so lonely, and they're
terrifies
really
me, though.
long. Do you know how long they are? They're fucking long.
But we spend our life is trying to get as much white on the page as possible. Write as few words as possible to communicate in a really evocative way a mood and feeling and subtext and all the things that they're saying but they're not saying, so that everybody else in the process can then do their bit. Where novel writing terrifies me because it's all description.
That's such
and I
a
don't
good
do
point.
any of that.
I found it very hard. The first book I wrote, which was just funny stories, which was not 488 Rules for Life, but which was kind of just like writing comedy bits. But it was I found it really hard because I'd always written TV sketches or TV segments, and I just always wanted to write in dialogue. Like, dialogue was my thing. And it took me a long time to get out of it, and you have to get your head in that headspace, and then it's very hard for me to do anything else. And it's difficult for me at the moment because I'm supposed to be writing season 2 of FISK, but I'm also supposed to be writing a book, and I can't do both at once. I don't have that much because I'm also doing stand-up, and my usual thing is I can do stand-up and one other thing, because stand-up is quite an easy muscle memory thing for me just because I've done it for so long. But it's very difficult for me at the moment because I haven't done stand-up with COVID. It's kind of all gone. I'm like a fat, lazy footballer who's in the off-season eating pies and drinking beers and just too fat to run around the paddock. That's what my stand-up is like now. It's flabby and it's gone. I have to write new material and then I've got to write a book. And I'm just, for a lot of the time, about a month, I sat there just going, I can't do any of it. And then I finally just got started on the book and got my book voice back and just went, okay, I'm a book writer again, I'm a book writer. And, if I write till lunchtime, fucking good on me. Don't you laugh. That is a long time for book writing.
Can we ask what the book's about, or is it a bit early?
Oh, just same again, waiter. That's all I do, Denise.
Good.
FISK season 1, FISK season 2, rules book. Oh, let's have some more rules. Apparently there weren't enough. They asked me to write, they wanted to update the book with 30 more rules, and I said, I reckon I can do more than that, and somehow I've skewered myself into doing another volume.
Good,
So, yeah,
well, we
pretty
look forward
stupid,
to that.
pretty stupid. Writers, they're not smart.
Well, I'm going to do a little change of pace now. Because I want to talk a little bit about people getting into serial, which of course, you guys have written a lot of. And I'm going to play a little clip first from The Heights, because I think that was an extraordinary piece of work and brought on so many new writers from all sorts of very diverse backgrounds. So can we play that clip now, please, and then we'll have a chat about it.
Just another glorious day living near the towers.
Can I get some help? I found him in the gardens of the towers.
How's the mother?
Here he is, local hero.
Hey, let's drink to the baby.
How much of your family's money did you lose?
Life is about change. Embrace it.
Are you kidding me right now?
It does get better, right?
We're family.
I would bloody love that if they brought that back, but anyway, that's a separate issue. You were obviously brought onto the Heights because you've done shed loads of soaps, both here and in the UK. How did you approach the writers' room of the Heights?
So I came on not right at the start. They had like a pretty thorough pitch document, and they started plotting some stuff. I think they started plotting, and Warren Clark, who was the exec on it and one of the creators, had heard that I'd worked on EastEnders, and their vision for it was an Australian version of EastEnders. So our soaps are pretty light. Your Neighbours and Home and Away are pretty light. This is not a criticism, but they're generally quite light. They're not super heavy hitting. They're not super issue-y. Do it from time to time, but EastEnders and all the soaps in the UK actually have a real social responsibility they take really seriously. They have a big audience, and it's kind of their job to do those issue stories. And so they wanted to bring more of that. So they got me in quite early. So the show sort of, it's difficult. It existed in that there was a document, there were characters, and there were a rough idea of what the stories were. But what's really hard with a new show is the stories are only one thing. The stories and the characters are kind of only one thing about it. It's hard to explain. Something I talk about a lot is, what does it feel like to watch it? What does an audience experience when they're watching this show? What feelings do they have? And that kind of, for me, that is what defines a television show. And so we spend a lot of time figuring that out. And that comes in a lot of ways. We're going to tell a romance story where this guy's gay, openly gay, fine with it. He's in love with his best friend who's not openly gay. It's a forbidden love story, which is a pretty stock soap story. I'm in love with this person, but I can't be. How do we tell it? What are the moments? What's the tone of it as you go through it? So that's just one example. And so figuring that out is how you figure out what your audience is going to feel when they watch it. That was really hard, and we didn't get it right the first time. We went in, we spent nearly a year, and then went into the ABC to here's our story document, here's the first 4 episodes, and they're like, tone's not right. It was basically the summation of that meeting. And they were right, but what I'm saying is, if you didn't nail it, someone reads it and they go, no, it's too much this, or it's not enough that. Go away, keep working, and then come back and find it.
Because, I remember you saying that EastEnders took about 2 years to kick in.
They spent so long on development. 2-3 years, so much time, so much money. They commissioned episode 1 twice. 2 writers wrote at the same time, and they picked the one they liked the most.
I would argue that with a serial, you're constantly remaking it anyway, because, they've all been going for 25, 30 years, and so every couple of years they do this little turn, and as an audience you shouldn't notice it. Yeah. But it's just suddenly become a bit more reflective of contemporary life. I think, hats off, because I think creating a new serial drama is one of the hardest things possible. And because we see them all the time and they look light and easy, it's actually the hardest form, because you've got to find a way to shoot them as well, and the production logistics of...
And what was so amazing about The Heights too is the number of people from amazing diverse backgrounds that were very new too, both as actors and as writers. You'd mentioned to me when we were chatting the legendary Dot West, who is an amazing Indigenous writer and producer, and I mean, she's extraordinary. And so you brought a lot of people like her in, didn't you, to...
Yeah, so Dot's sort of at the senior, super experienced end. The thing is,
That's right.
With any show, everyone's thirsty for new talent, which is great. But you need some safe pairs of hands. And that's what Dot brought. I mean, she's obviously great, but she brought experience and heft, if you know what I mean, like story heft, presence.
Yeah.
But like not a physical presence.
Chops.
But a chops, like a presence of personality.
Yeah.
When Dot talks, you listen because she's so experienced. And so it was great to have her, as well as having younger writers who were new, who'd never written, maybe written some plays, but never written TV before. And you can bring them in when you've got those safe pairs of hands as well.
How did you sort of, because I know that soaps are a brilliant opportunity for people, as you were talking about before, David, to sort of, get their writing experience up. But what's your advice to people, to young writers going in there, and how do you induct them in so that they can keep up to the pace of writing a serial like that?
Yeah, with something like a serial, and I got this when I started at Neighbours, the single most important thing is a story brain, is understanding I think so, David might disagree, but understanding the mechanics of story, because a soap opera will chew it up relentlessly. Like, it's merciless how quickly a soap opera will go through story. And a lot of people, this is the thing not just with emerging writers, but very experienced writers as well, a lot of people go into story rooms and pitch an idea. What if, this is one I can remember myself saying, what if Harold had a wife? What if a wife came out of nowhere for Harold? And at the time, like, I've just laid gold on the table, and everyone at the table's like, and then? And I didn't have the and then. So a lot of writers in Australia will pitch the idea. Ideas, I mean, sure, ideas are good. There are millions of ideas. Like, literally, you could go in a room and pitch 100 different ideas.
Yeah.
I think that was the problem with our whiteboard, because we didn't know what we were doing. And so everyone was just going, oh yeah, put that on the board, put that on the board. And so when we went away to write it, we just went, well, that was 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And we thought we had 6 episodes laid out.
But someone who can come into a soap opera writing room and says, Harold has a wife. She knocks on his door. She's got cancer. No, they've got a child. I'm pitching this, I go. They've actually got a daughter that he didn't know about. That daughter has cancer. That daughter needs Harold's kidney. Can Harold give up his kidney? He gives up his kidney. It's amazing. The daughter survives. Him and the wife are reunited. They fall in love all over again, and she moves him around his street. They live happily ever after.
I'm going to watch Neighbours again. It's great.
Then they discover she's a man. Whatever. As long as you go, and I remember that when I had my interview for Neighbours, they're like, bring us a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So once you go in there and you pitch that story, right, it's unlikely that story is going to appear on TV like that. Because then David's going to go, okay, that's a story, but what if she is a man? What if she was a man? What if this? What if that? Yeah. And then you all together, and same with comedy. The story is, the one I always think about, I don't know why I'm going to talk about this dumb story. That one in Friends where someone's cheesecake gets delivered to their house by mistake. I'm looking at you to recognise this story, but you're not recognising it.
No, I do. I know.
It's a
and then
bullshit
they keep eating a bit at a time.
What if we had a spoonful? It wouldn't matter. She's away. You wouldn't know. I can't remember what the end of it is. They fight over the cheesecake, whatever. But that, I don't even know why I'm bringing that story up. But someone would have come in and said they find a cheesecake, they fight over it, this, and then this happens. And then you start the process of refinement or of developing.
I think and then is the really key part about serial, because it's a never-ending story, right? So, and I think I think a lot of people in our industry look down on people who worked in serial. I'd worked on lots of 1 hours when I started at Neighbours, and I'm like, I've got this. Like, how hard can it be? And then I'm like, 100 scenes a week. And then, so everything is and then. And it's really, it's like the writer Olympics, because you're there, you're exhausted because 100 scenes a week. And the weeks I think we're doing 52 weeks of the year, I think, at that point. And it's just like, and then, like Monday morning it'd roll around. Actually, we used to do it on Thursday afternoons, or Friday afternoons, which was a bad call until we introduced the wine. But, it's like, and then, okay, so we did all of that with Harold, and now what do we do next? Or we want to shift a family, or I liked when I was there to do some social issue stuff, and it's such an incredible discipline about process. And I had to talk about my process, which I'd never done before. So, because you were training lots of people at the time, like, oh, okay, what is this story? Like, how does it work? And what are stakes? What are the appropriate stakes? What is the appropriate tone? And so I think in a serial, you're always thinking about that stuff. And the great thing is that it's coming back at you really fast. Yeah. Working on a limited series, you know, I've been working on a limited series for over a year and we haven't shot anything yet. And so I won't really know for a while until we have our full cast what it's actually going to look like. And even then you don't know. But on a serial, you know, you're seeing it all the time and the audience are so engaged with you as well. And so if you do something, if you make a mistake, I love serial because you can experiment. Yeah. And I remember I fought the network for a whole bunch of things and then went, oh, actually, that's completely right.
No, but it taught me, because I did 2 years as well as a script editor, which is writing like the second drafts of scripts. And you know, someone's sick, we need new scenes. They're away, we need new scenes. This doesn't work, we need new scenes for 2 years. And that's what helped me, it's going to sound pompous, but helped me discover my voice. It helped me discover what I was good at writing, because that's what came back was the best. Yeah. I'm not so good at writing that, I'm really good at writing that. It was...
Because you might write, one week it might be an action movie, all in the same group of episodes. An action movie, a romance, intrigue, mystery.
Yep, a dumb comedy.
Dumb, boom, titty boom, comedy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you really flex all the different muscles.
I would say this, I don't have, you know, really advice for people, except for one thing is never be arrogant about what you think is a good job and a bad job, because if you want to be a writer, then nothing you write is ever wasted. It's always... You're always going to learn from it, and it can only make the next thing you do better, whatever the experience was. So if you're ever offered a gig, don't think you're too good for it. Don't think you, just don't be arrogant. Just write it and make it the best thing, the best version of what you do. Because just, you know, I wrote advertorials for a long time. I was in advertising and then I lost my job in advertising, and so then I was writing advertorials for magazines, you know, those articles that pretend they're articles, but really it's an ad at the end. But it's all really good practice, because all that stuff kind of made me so aware of, you know, okay, I've got to write, you know, 100 words. Okay, now it's got to be 200 words. Now I need to find 400 to, like, it's if you sit around doing nothing and just writing your own passion project and never showing it to anyone, you're not really going to learn anything. But just constantly, even just showing your advertorial to someone and them saying, take 10 words out of it, you go, okay, that's a good exercise. It's all just, it's all good gear.
That giving 100% to everything is really good advice that you said there. Like, you never know who's watching.
Yeah, you don't know.
You never know who's reading. Like, I honestly had a show optioned by a producer because she watched an episode of EastEnders and she's like, oh, that was a good episode. Who wrote it? Oh, it was Peter Matesi. And then literally like 3 months later, she watched another episode, having not watched for 3 months. And oh, that was a good episode too, was that? And it happened to be mine as well. So by pure fluke, you just never know. So you have to give 100% to everything. Even if you think no one's ever going to see it, you never know who's going to see it.
Also from a practical point of view, for the most part, we're freelancers. So you're only as good as the job you did on the last job. Mm. And if you're a pain in the bum because you can't take feedback, or you're late, or you just slummed it, that's actually going to make it hard to get the next job, and you're always a little bit looking for the next gig.
It's a small industry too here. Like, word will get around really quickly. Everyone knows.
Wow, that was a brilliant end. I didn't even have to ask for it. And it's 8 o'clock, and can I share something that Kitty's got a bloody gig in Fairfield?
Well, you did say we were starting at 6. You know, it wasn't my fault that you started at 7.
Like, 8 o'clock is it, and so we're almost done. But no, that was a perfect ending. Thank you so much. I do want to give you all a big fat thank you. And I also want to say thanks so much to Film Victoria for their support, AFTRS, of course, for their support, and ACMI. I mean, tonight you guys and girls have been bloody awesome. It was a turbulent time, but you nailed it, and we bloody love ACMI. So thanks to you all for coming. Our next session is actually on directors. So you want to be a director, we're going to call it next time. So do come. We've got people like Adam Elliott coming, so feel free to join us. But thanks again to you guys. You're amazing. Thank you. Now, before we go, we're putting up a little slide thing where it's a scan thing so you can give your feedback, because we'd love to know what subjects you'd like covered, how it all went and all of that.